So recently, Elon Musk actually became a trillionaire because he put his company SpaceX on the stock market, and the stock market price soared tremendously to the point where his fortune is worth more than $1 trillion, and he is the world's first recorded trillionaire ever. As big of an accomplishment as that is to be the first person ever to have $1 trillion, I think it's actually quite shocking and appalling that someone has that much money, and it's not as big of a flex as everyone thinks it should be. I don't know if it's because I've been on certain parts of the internet, or I've just been thinking deeper about issues like this, or maybe it's a combination of both. But I think that a lot of issues with today's world are being very apparent. Have been very apparent to me because I keep absorbing information like this, and it's kind of jarring to see that there's someone who has the most amount of money in ever recorded history on Earth, and it being a celebration that he has this much money, but he chooses not to do anything productive with this money beyond creating more factories and companies that kind of fuel his own personal interests. Space exploration is cool, looking at the moon, stars, galaxy, things that make up our solar system and aspects outside of Earth is cool, but I don't see the point in doing this. There's a lot of problems that need to be addressed on Earth before we kind of start exploring outside of Earth as a hobby. And the fact that someone has the most amount of money in ever recorded human history, and his time is spent worrying about AI data centers and social media discourse and race-based politics, instead of trying to fix problems that could benefit the majority of the people on Earth, if not everybody, is actually kind of weird. Like, a lot of people make this argument that as a billionaire, it's quite unethical to have that amount of money because no one person could acquire that amount of wealth no matter how hard they work, and you have to acquire that much wealth by stepping on the backs of other people. So, using the transitive property to become a trillionaire, you're kind of just doing that same exact thing, except you're amping up whatever it is it took you to become a billionaire and multiplying it on a larger scale. There's this thing called sudden wealth syndrome that develops in people who tend to get a large amount of money, and they kind of just forego the normal rules of society and start thinking more self-centeredly. And I think that's something that Elon Musk definitely suffers from. I'm not a clinical psychologist or psychiatrist or psychologist or anything, but I think that would definitely apply to Elon Musk and other billionaires who have gained a large amount of money in their lifetime. Growing up, we all have seen the Spider-Man movies, Sam Raimi, Andrew Garfield, Tom Holland, any of them, just take your pick. You see the mantra being told, whether it be the beginning of the trilogy or duology or any of them, that with great power comes great responsibility, and having access to bare minimum $1 billion, let alone $1 trillion, makes that responsibility you have so much greater, because money is power in this world. Let's not kind of beat around the bush. To have money means you have power. So the fact that this guy can have $1 trillion in his possession, whether it be liquid or not, he definitely has access to at least over $1 billion. It kind of just shows that he doesn't want to use his power for just means. Like, if you look at the way he moves outside of just the fact that he has $1 trillion, he's not someone who's looking to better the world for the sake of everybody in it as well as himself. He's kind of just someone who uses his money to fulfill his own desires and needs and wants. Again, I'm not telling him what to do with his money. He can do with his money whatever he wants, but at a certain point, you kind of have to start looking at people who have a certain amount of money and what they choose to do with that money, and say, wow, this person's not a good person because they have so much money and they choose not to use it properly. Again, I'm not someone who is in charge of how he decides to spend his money. What he chooses to do with money is his business, but that doesn't mean I can't criticize him for not using his money for the greater good, or the greatness of mankind. When we look back at people who are considered well liked, or people in society that have a well reputation, it's because they did things for the greater society that benefited everybody, not just themselves, or at least they tried to do so. Like, when people look back at JFK and MLK, Gandhi, other big figures in modern history, they did things that went against the grain at times, yes, but for the large majority of people, they were trying to benefit them. JFK was someone who was on the side of trying to get civil rights enacted for people who were disenfranchised in America and treated badly, like black people and other minorities. MLK was also the one facilitating that fight. Gandhi was doing hunger strikes in order to facilitate world peace, and it was just a few individuals who tried to use their power and influence to better the world in which they live in. But you don't hear about Elon Musk doing things like that with his money and his riches. As you saw during the beginning of Donald Trump's presidency, he was deeply involved with him and trying to, rein in the American debt issue, as well as get his hands involved in trying to better the U.S. economy. Unfortunately, that didn't end up being the case, and that project got scrapped. But with someone with his wealth, he doesn't even need to inject himself into the hands of politicians who have clearly shaky backgrounds. I mean, the fact that he was even aligning himself with Donald Trump is a problem to begin with in the first place. We all know his history. It's easily Googleable. All the facts are readily available online. And on top of that, he was linked to Jeffrey Epstein and, emailing him about wanting to go to the island for whatever reason. And we all know that whatever happened on that island wasn't something you want to be a part of or associated with if you're someone who has a decent moral standing. But what I'm trying to say is that the fact that Elon Musk was even able to make it to $1 trillion just shows the type of person he is, and the inability for him to prioritize the needs of everybody that is doing not as well as him, and kind of just bathing in his own self-actualization / his own selfishness. Essentially what it is. Like, as a person who doesn't have $1 billion, don't even have $1 million, I would be content with having a stream of income that would sustain my living, as well as give me the freedom to do what I want in my free time. For me, that might be an average stipend of $4K a month. If I didn't have to work ever again, I'd be completely fine with that. I wouldn't need to sit on $20 billion or $20 million for that matter in order to live a fulfilling life where I had all my needs met, and could also help people in the process. But the fact that there are people out there with $500 million, $1 billion, $20 billion, $50 billion, like numbers like that, the levels of greed that you're exhibiting are exactly what they talk about in the Bible. I know that's used as a meme sometimes when people talk about the levels of greed you have should be studied, or you're the reason that they talk about greed in the Bible. Like, this is wholeheartedly what they're explaining, because for you to have at least $1 billion and not actively be using that money to help people in worse off situations, and you see the injustices that happen in the world, and you're claiming that the reason you have $1 billion is because you worked harder, or you worked better than people, or you're just smarter. It's like, let's say you did work smarter than everybody, and that is the case. Do you not want to, use your power for the greater good to make it seem as though you're a better person than you're actually claiming yourself to be? Like, it's just weird, because you see on the news how the prices of groceries are going up, the prices of goods are going up, gas prices are going up, things are becoming less affordable, people are getting paid less at their jobs for their time. CEOs and other companies are making record profits year over year, while they're also slashing hundreds, if not thousands, of jobs of their workforce. But you have people like Elon Musk who can make $1 trillion in that same economy where people are struggling to even find jobs to sustain themselves. And it's just like, that level of injustice just makes you look at the world a very different way, because how can the same world exist where some man can reach $1 trillion, being the richest man in the world, while there's someone on the same continent who is struggling to not only find a job, but also find something to eat, or a way to sustain themselves in a manner that's not either degrading to their soul, or can at least pay them a livable wage to the point where they don't have to go out begging in order to have their wages supplemented in any way, shape, or form. But at the end of the day, those are just my 2 cents. I just think that having $1 trillion is not really that big of a flex. And if Elon Musk wanted to be remembered for greater things than just having $1 trillion. I'd actually do something with that money instead of just flex that you have it. But yeah, those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section down below, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Deuces.